everyone, Cherries here. Oh, December is coming up, and that means it's time for our last monthly bullet journal setup of this year. Like, already? But I'm very excited to share with you a combination of wintry, festive, and cozy BuJo theme. So if you're setting up to, grab your journals and plan with me for December. We're starting with our cover page, or pages rather, because we're gonna be doing an interactive cover. We will be using watercolors for our illustrations and a number 6 round brush. I like showing you my color palette at once, but in here, I will be mixing them gradually as I go. As usual, the color combinations are written on the screen for your reference in case you want to follow the paintings. The first color I mixed are burnt sienna and a bit of raw sienna. I actually don't know why I did that, but just the burnt sienna will do. We're painting directly on the page. My perspective for this cover is a view of cabins from the inside of another cabin. We start by painting the log wall from the top to the sides. It's also like a window. And as you can see, I left some white spaces above because we will be painting some hanging lights later. We're just applying a flat layer of the burnt sienna color all the way towards the bottom where the wall is visible. Then we're taking yellow to paint the base of the hanging lights. We're painting basic round shapes, and then we're also adding the glow around a bit lighter. It looks weird at this stage, but it will come together later as we build up the colors. Now we're adding the details and the shadows on the log wall by loading our brush with more pigment of the burnt sienna. We're doing thin lines using the tip of the brush, creating the shape of each log, and we can use these shapes as our guide on where to apply the shadows. So with a medium consistency, we're adding the shadows in outward strokes from the lines, and that will help add a dimensional effect on each of the log. I also did the same on the opposite side, and I hope you don't mind me omitting that part in this video because the manner is practically the same. And we'll continue adding those darker details on the top and on the other half of the page. This part is going to be like a cozy bay window with some throw pillows and blankets. The reason we started with the wall is for me to decide how light or dark the colors will be for the pillows, since I wanted the focus of the cover illustration on the window view, which we will be doing later on. But when we are done with the wall, we go back to the hanging lights. We're taking a brighter yellow to paint the shape of the round lights and still keeping the center and the area around them as is. Then we will draw the handles, string, and the curvy details on the bulbs with dark brown. We are now painting the elements here. I decided to go for reds, yellow, green, gray, and cream colors. It's quite festive and warm, and I like it that way. We start with the base layers and gradually add the folds on the pillows and blankets using a darker tone to add texture. When I say darker tone, it's usually just adding more pigment of the same paint and just a bit of Van Dyke brown for warm colors and black or Payne's gray for cooler ones. We want to keep the pillows really simple and easy to paint, and I added some more shadows around and outlining the edges a little bit. Now we are done on the first part of my cover page. Like I said, we're gonna be making it interactive, so let's flip over to the page next to it to paint the view. Let's attach some washi tapes first to keep the margins clean and straight. Then we start painting the snowy landscape and the roofs of 2 cabins, as well as the gray parts of the sky. Then we're taking a mix of burnt sienna and burnt umber to paint the exterior of the first cabin, and yellow and a hint of orange on the windows for the warm lights from the inside. While you still have the same color on your brush, you can already paint the brown exterior of the other cabin, so you don't need to clean your brush many times. I totally forgot doing that here. Sometimes my mind drifts away when painting, but it's okay. It happens in reality. But anyway, we also painted the chimneys with brown and leaving a bit of white spaces on top as the snow. Then we're also painting pathways here using the same mix of burnt sienna and burnt umber. My favorite part in this painting would be the evergreen trees in the background. We mixed Viridian and Van Dyke brown, and then with a very light hand pressure on the tip of our brush, we're just loosely painting tiny strokes with the branches forming a triangular shape. You can start by painting a vertical line or some pencil lines as a guide to make both sides of the trees as symmetrical as possible. We will also paint them in different heights to make the whole picture interesting. Since we're doing a wintery landscape, it only makes sense to add snow on the trees, but my white gel pen decided to give up and I didn't reach for my white gouache. The trees are in a distance anyway, so I thought we can just leave some white spaces in between the strokes that will act as the snow. And for me, that worked out fine. Then using a very light consistency of the same color, we're painting the evergreens that are farther away. We can paint the top of the trees first and fill the space with color. I like to make them really streaky so we can still see some texture. I also added another layer of slightly darker tone to paint those that are between the near and distant trees. Alright, that finishes the second part of our cover. Let's remove the washi tapes and go back to the first page to cut out the negative spaces using a paper knife. Make sure you put something behind the page like a thick cardboard or a cutting mat, and we slowly and carefully cut the space out all the way to the edges of the log wall. If the cuts are not clean enough, you can always use small scissors. One final touch is, of course, our December title. We will be using wooden alphabet stamps to add the month. I was deciding whether to just put the number 12 on the sky or just the word December below the throw pillows, but I think over here is better. Okay, we are finally done with our interactive cover pages. I love the combination of warm and cold in this scene. Now onto the left hand side will be my December calendar. I will be using these colored papers. I printed them myself, a light green to cover the whole page, and ginger colored strips for the calendar layout itself. And if you're interested with the specific colors I used to print these, you can leave a comment below so I can drop it there just in case I forget to add them in the video description. Below we stamped this month and using another colored paper in a sort of a muted purple color and cut it into a rectangular shape. I was trying to get a little bit of a bluish tone but ended up liking it as it is. Then using the fine liner tip of the Ohuhu brush marker, we're drawing horizontal lines for the writing spaces. I wanted to have like a snow effect on this paper that I tried adding little dots using the paintbrush, but I think it also diluted the color of the print, so it gave some harsh lines around the dots when they dried up. I didn't realize it until I looked at it again. Anyway, on the other side of the cutout, I also glued the same muted purple paper all over it and a rectangular light green paper that matches the one we have behind. On this space will be the list of my Tottocharizze Treats videos this coming December. Yes, it is happening this year. There are 12 videos traditionally, but to balance my work and life, especially now that I'm running my own shop, I decided to go with 8 videos this year with giveaways in most of them. I'm working my best in these extra videos, so I hope you enjoy them with or without the giveaways. We are now done with the interactive cover, calendar, goals, and focus pages, and we have already moved on to our next spread. We skipped a blank page earlier, and I think you know what it is for. We're doing interactive habit trackers again this month. But we start by painting our background illustration. The idea for this spread is a mantle decoration with snowy cabins and stockings. We're painting the snow decor first. We're using the whiteness of the page as is, so we're just adding the shadowed areas with a watery mix of white, indigo, and Payne's gray. If you're using a notebook with pages that are a bit more warmer in tone, I think you can still do the same technique or just use a white gouache for it. Next are the evergreen decorations. We're doing the same technique from the cover page painting earlier, but here we're just making the shape slightly rounder and a base with brown color. We're painting several of them in different sizes. We have smaller ones toward the bottom, medium on the sides of the spread. There's actually 2 of them, but I forgot and just painted it afterwards, and then bigger evergreens above. The snow decor is to look more of a sloping surface, that's why the evergreens are placed like that. On the top sides of the spread, we painted 2 fake silver birch trees, but I decided to add just a little bit of raw umber in white and Van Dyke brown mix. Next are frames behind. We have a full frame right on the center, but 2 frames at the back are kind of cropped in the whole picture, so we're actually trying to make this look like a zoomed in view of the mantle decoration. When we get to paint the mantle part, it has to be bigger. The crown area is the only part visible in this picture. We are using a mix of white and Van Dyke brown for the base color. And then we're taking more pigment of the same color to paint the molding or the edges. After that, we can build up the shadows in between the lines to add more depth. The white spaces here are, of course, for the stockings. We're using Naples yellow to paint them. We're also adding some simple knitted pattern to each of them. And then to define the texture more, we are using burnt sienna for the details and shadows. After that, we will go back to the shelf decor to paint a couple small wooden cabins on the lower part. We're using the same burnt sienna and burnt umber mixture to paint the exterior and chimneys, yellow and orange for the windows, and white, indigo, Van Dyke brown for the snow-covered roofs. Then we are also painting a bigger cabin on the upper center between these two evergreens. There are different cabin designs you can paint here, so feel free to do anything you like. But just to keep everything uniform, I'm using the same color to paint them. Our background is finally coming together. I know it looked a bit too much, but we're getting to the fun part, or the functional part. But we're taking a separate watercolor paper. You can also use the same notebook page. In here, we are painting some more cabins that we are going to use for our interactive habit trackers. Make sure to measure the size of the mini calendar and the insert first on the notebook page, and then copy the same measurement on the watercolor paper. I'm showing you how I painted 3 of them in this video, but I will be having 6 cabins, so I just painted another set of 3 cabins with almost the same design of camera. Like I said, you can paint different cabin designs as long as the size and space are good enough for your trackers at the back. My initial idea was to paint a shelf with white houses or Christmas village decor and just use the drawers for the interactive part, but then I'll also need to do a pick what you need prompt with scriptures, which I also like to be interactive. And this is where God does something amazing. Building a relationship with Him now also includes my desire to involve Him in my creative process. So I present an idea and then ask, should I execute it like this? Or how do you want me to do it? And then He comes and plants the same concept in my mind, but better. I mean, He puts it in my mind like a snap of a finger. I didn't think about it, and it excites me all the time and be like, okay, that's awesome. Let's do that. I just want to share that because I give Him the credit, and I'm sure some of you are wondering, how is God even part of something you made with your hands, right? Okay, when we are done with the cabin paintings, we cut out the parts on the snow decor where we can insert them. It's always nice to have pencil marks before cutting. And then the pick what you need prompt will be the stocking stuffers on a separate sheet of paper, which is just a leftover of my Dutch door cutouts. We are painting 4 groups of gifts and Christmas decor. These doesn't have to be anything detailed. But when we are done, we will cut them out with a vertical strip under each of them. And then I picked the scriptures for the month written on these copy paper in rectangular sizes. I left margins on the left because that is where we're going to attach the back of the strips of the stuffers. We're just gonna fold the scriptures and I'm placing them on top of the stockings so we will know how wide the fold should be. Now we can cut the top parts of the stockings and check if the stuffers are easy to insert. Then we can go ahead and glue the back of the pages on the ones we skipped earlier. We're also gluing the top of the cuts on the stockings so that they don't stop the paper inside to slide out. Yay, we're finally done with the interactive elements. We're just completing the spread by stamping "Remember the Reason for the Season" on the left frame and activities on the right side where I can list some fun things to do this December. Alright, that was quite a long process for us, but I hope you enjoyed the end result. This is definitely one of my favorites in terms of the interactive layouts. But we have to move on right away and set up my weekly spreads for December. I wanted to do something simple for this layout. We're just gluing this ginger colored paper on top for the week 49 header, the muted purple on the edge of the page, and light green boxes for the dailies with thin strips for the days and dates. We're cutting the edge of this page with the same thickness as the colored paper on the other side. I will only be having 3 pages for the weeklies because I know for myself that I won't be using my journal by the end of the year and just spend time with my loved ones. On this page, we will be painting a full page illustration of a cozy fireplace scene. We start by painting a frame and a decor of nativity or a manger scene depicting the birth of Jesus. I simply painted lines forming a house shape and the figures loosely, as well as an evergreen decor on one side. I already knew how he was born, but I didn't really think too much about it. I was reading this scene from the scripture last year, and I read it really slow this time that I came into realization and appreciation about how profound his birth is that it made me really cry. And also how it foreshadowed what he came here for. The manger is a feeding trough for animals, and just like that, he came to offer himself as food for our souls. His beginnings are so humble. He didn't came surrounded by riches or anything like that. Anyway, back to our spread, we are painting a fireplace with bricks design using burnt sienna and a fire burning inside. We painted the base first with light yellow and some firewoods using burnt sienna with dark brown details. Then a vibrant yellow and blending it around while keeping the center light, which will be the flame. And then burnt sienna again for the final layer surrounding the yellows to add depth. We're painting the floor with just the same colors, but we want to add the reflection of the fire, so we paint most of the area with burnt sienna and light yellow from the base of the fireplace and blend them together by adding another layer of yellow. We're painting the walls with a mix of sepia and a bit of red. The other side of the room has a wall lamp, a window, and a blue curtain. The walls are slightly flat at this point, but I'll get back to add some more darker tones to make the foreground elements pop a bit more. The final element we're painting here is a girl sitting in a comfy green armchair while enjoying a mug of hot cocoa. We painted the base of the armchair first with olive green and the legs with dark brown. We will build up the shadows later, but for now, let's paint the girl. We're using a mix of Naples yellow and a bit of burnt umber for the skin, light brown for the hair, white and raw sienna mixture for the sweater, and red for the blanket and mug. These are just the initial layers. Now it's time to add the details, beginning with the facial features. Using a detailed brush would be recommended since we have a small face to paint. It might look faster in this video, but I really took my time here because it can be hard to fix mistakes when using watercolors, unlike gouache where you can just cover them with a new layer of paint. Then we move on to the hair again to add strands or shadows with a darker brown. And I'm just using thin strokes as much as possible. On the sweater, a mix of raw sienna and raw umber is used to paint the folds and subtle lines for the patterns, creating soft textures. I think at this point I already painted the shadows on the armchair as well as the reflection of the fire with yellow. However, I wasn't able to film it, but I hope you got the idea. And then we add the shadows on the mug and the blanket wrapped around her legs. One final touch is adding the phrase, "Oh come let us adore him," on the frame using a black fine liner. And that's pretty much it for this painting. We are cutting this side again and move on to setting up my devotional spreads. I chose the 4-day plan called Christmas Vacations by Jordan Rayner, and as usual you can find this in the YouVersion app. I will also leave the link on the video description. In terms of the layout, I'm using the SOAP method again, which means scripture, observation, application, and prayer. I'll have a simple daily header and 4 green paper boxes for each category. We are down to the final spread we're making in this video. We are setting up my monthly review and favorite spread. The review title will be stamped on this green paper on the left side of the spread, and the faves title on this lengthwise ginger colored paper. I'm writing the usual questions that I include in my review pages, such as what am I grateful for, what did I do well, something I learned, and what I need to improve. I don't have any questions yet for the next year because I will be including them in my 2024 bullet journal setup, which is, by the way, coming up next month, so stay tuned for that. We are painting one last illustration in this setup. I decided to paint instead of a cabin. It's just a house with snow covering the roof. We're using the same colors and the same technique. By this time, having painted a lot of cabins earlier, you get familiar already with the subject, so it gets easier to paint the more you practice. As you can see, there are also white spaces on the front. We will be painting evergreens here too, and since our illustration is a little bit bigger and the trees are closer this time, we can add snow on the branches of the bigger tree. We are still not using any white paint over here, but I'm gonna show you how we can achieve that. So we are taking our green paint, and with the tip of our brush, we are painting tiny strokes that are going sideways, but we are leaving some blobs of white spaces in between. You can also outline those areas with a pencil beforehand. Then we are layering them with darker strokes of green, mostly under the white areas, to make them pop nicely. The color seems a bit pale, which it does in real life, but I went ahead and added a layer of olive green to give a bit of vibrance to the trees, and define the shadows more to finish this illustration. Alright, before we do a flip through of my December bullet journal setup, I wanted to show you the new stickers I added in my coffee shop. They are limited designs, which means they will only be available for the season. There are 3 sticker sheets and an individual sticker, and another collection called Dear Diary. I have a sticker sheet with hand-drawn illustrations, washi stickers with writings, days of the week, and dates and months, which are perfect for planners or journaling, as well as a vintage journaling individual sticker. I also restocked my Take Me to the Bookshop sticker sheets. I'm so grateful many of you liked it. I didn't expect they will sell out in just a week, so if you're eyeing them, I will be providing the link to my shop on the video description so you can check them out. Okay, let's bring back my journal and flip through our December spreads. I really hope you enjoyed this monthly setup and that you got some fun and helpful ideas for your own bullet journal. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more bullet journal content from me. But that's everything for today. I will talk to you soon on Cherry Street series starting December 3rd. The first video is something special, so stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching. Take care and have a wonderful season. Bye everyone!